So now let's move on to something slightly more advanced. Now we should cover something called packages. What is NPM? NPM stands for Node Package Manager. Okay. There is, you know, you can see there is 1.5 million packages which are published on NPM. We will use Axios, Express, and all of them. We will also use React. So basically, this is like a shop for the different open source code which is out there for Node.js. You will be writing very less code on your own. Most of the code which we use in our day-to-day lives is taken from these open source repositories, and we only write the code which is relevant to our use case. Okay, we don't write the whole code for everything. Let's say you want to make a node server, the most of the code will be very similar, okay, to some other node server. There will not be a lot of difference. So we will only code that bit which is useful for our use case. Okay. So this node package manager exists so that you only have to write the part that is relevant to your use case. So, and this has a lot of packages which are free and open source, which are coded by developers who are much smarter than me and you, who have been in the industry much more longer than you or I have. So one of them is Express, which I told you is the minimalist web framework for Node, and you can see it is very popular. It has nearly 12 million weekly downloads. So more than 12 million servers and users all across the globe download it weekly. Okay. So that is why I told you that Express is very popular. So just like Express, you will need a lot of other packages for making our application today. And you can check all the packages that we will be requiring in the package.json. Okay. And in package.json, if you pay attention, you would find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 packages, or you can call them dependencies, which we require in order to make our code work. Okay. All these packages have a certain role to play in the app, and we will cover it as and when I use them. So I thought this is important to let you guys know that we are using all these packages. How do I know that we are using all these? Because I have been doing this for 2 years now, and I have had experience that all these packages are required to build a good API. So once you get experience, you will also know what packages to use. But how do we install these packages? Because these packages are stored in npm. Okay, we have just written that we require these packages. They don't come with Node by default, because if every single package which exists for Node would be downloaded when you install Node, your laptop will run out of space, because as I said, there are more than 1.5 million packages. Okay, so you have to install only those packages which are relevant to your app, otherwise it will become very bloated and very slow. Okay, so I'll kill the server by hitting Control C. Okay, and again, another npm command that you should watch out for is npm install. Okay, hit enter. What npm install actually does is it goes and looks at your package.json file and sees what all is written in your dependencies, what all is a dependency in your application, and npm install goes ahead and installs all those packages. Okay, so it will create a folder. If I'm not wrong, it will create a folder called node modules. Okay, I think it will show up in some time. Okay, no issues. So the index.js file is here, and once you have done npm install, you can start writing your code for the API. Okay, so follow along if you're writing. I'll start writing the code for the backend now. Till then, if you have any doubts, let me know. nodemon index.js shows error, then Arsh, I suggest you go to our Discord server where you would be assisted by our coordinators. Uh, they would be able to help you. Till then, I'll uh, start writing the code for the backend. Uh, but if you have any issues, I suggest for now, don't focus too much on it. If node index.js works for you, you are better off just control C and killing the server and starting it again, because you won't be starting it again and again as much as me. Okay. You can run the final product using node index.js, so it's not a very big problem. Okay. So the first line that we will require is to write is require dot env, okay, dot config. Just make sure that you follow the same convention that I am writing. So what does require do? It, remember we installed a package called .env here. See, .env. We will basically be requiring that. Requiring is basically import. It's like if you have done import uh, OS and import sys and all those modules in Python. This is similar to that, but the JavaScript version of it. And as soon as you require .env, you are calling the .config method on that. So this configurates your .env. I'll tell you what .env is in a second. So now const express require express. Again, we are importing Express, which I told you is the minimalist web framework. Then the next one is require express async errors. Okay. Const body parser require body parser. I'll explain every single line. First, I'll write it. Const mongoose require mongoose. Basically, in this part, I'm just importing the different packages that we will require. Okay. So first, what does every single of these lines do? You first require .env, which is a package. Then again, you required express, which is another package, but this time you stored it in a variable. Why? I'll let you know. Basically, .env, once you require it, you only need to call the .config method on this. You never need to use it ever again. So that's why it is fine if you just require it and call it straight away. But express you have to use in 2-3 places sometimes. So that's why we store it in a separate variable for future use. Express async errors is something which you require for error handling in Express. So let's say your MongoDB crashes, or there is some downtime in MongoDB, or any other problem in your API. If you require this, it will help you to catch that error so that your browser won't, sorry, or your API won't stall. Okay, what do I mean by stalling? You remember sometimes when you open a page in your browser, it keeps loading and loading and loading and loading. So that is called stalling. So that happens once your API in the backend crashes, but you as a user obviously don't get to know about it. So this will help you in counteracting that. Okay. What is body parser? Body parser basically helps you parse the request. So basically every information or every request that you're getting from the user has some information in it, right? You have to tell what song you want in order for the backend to give you that song, right? So that body parser is required to actually help the Express API parse what is in that request. Okay. And that is all you need to understand about that. Just a second. If you have any doubts, please put it in the chat. I'll be happy to answer those. And similarly, Mongoose. Mongoose is the package. It is a very creative name, I would say. That Mongoose is a play on the word MongoDB. Basically, Mongoose is what you require to, it acts as a glue between your Node.js API and the MongoDB in the cloud. So you require Mongoose to act as an intermediator between the API and the database, because MongoDB does not care if you are using it in JavaScript or Python or C++ or C sharp. So every single JavaScript, or sorry, every single language has some sort of package or some sort of library to help you parse that data, or you can say help you work with the MongoDB. In Node.js, the most popular is called Mongoose. Okay, so now I will make an Express app. Okay, so basically, app is what you make from, like, you call this Express function which you imported. So this app is what represents your backend API. Okay, so if I have to add a comment, this represents your backend API. Okay, now let's say I'll now import something called, one line which I forgot to add here is const cors equals to require cors. Okay, cors basically means cross origin resource sharing, which is basically, sometimes what happens is by default it is not allowed. Let's say I am google.com, you are only allowed to make request on if you are on the domain google.com. Okay, otherwise the backend API does not accept your request because it identifies you as a threat. Okay, that I am google.com, but this particular person is requesting me from a different domain name. Okay, so that would be a problem, and we are going to do that in a way, because our React app will be deployed on Firebase and our backend is deployed on Microsoft Azure, so the domain names are totally different. So CORS requires to be enabled, because otherwise the API won't respond to those requests. And this is just one line of code which you have to write in order to enable that. So you imported CORS, right? So you have to do app.use CORS. Okay. So this is how you enable CORS, which is cross origin resource sharing. Okay. So see, this is the point that I was trying to make, that having these pre-written packages in npm helps making your code very simpler. Like, you can only imagine how complicated it would have been to actually go ahead and integrate Express and cross origin resource sharing on your own. Okay, so that is the magic, or you can say the power of having pre-written packages, because this is something that most of the APIs require. Okay, so having that allows you to not waste time on these repetitive things, so that you can go ahead and focus your energy on the dedicated and unique parts about your application. Okay, moving on. App.use, again another use statement. Use is basically integrating some sort of middleware or some modification in your default Express installation. So another thing that we will be using is body parser.json. So basically, JSON is JavaScript object notation. It is a very popular convention in backend APIs all across the tech industry, not just JavaScript. So if you have body parser.json, so it will allow you to parse those JSON requests which is coming in, and that will help the API to understand what the user, or you can say the requester, is trying to say. Okay. Now, let's say I want to build a Node.js API. So the easiest thing that I can do right now to start it is app.listen. Okay. And I'll do process.env.port, and I'll change it to, for now, let's just change it to, because this will be confusing to you guys. And this is how you write it. Okay. App.listen, and then you can do application is ready to serve request. Okay. Okay, so what this does essentially is that it starts this piece of these three lines of code will start your server. Okay, and this is an example of a callback function. Okay, what do you mean by callback function? That some functions are not meant to be started by you or me. I am not supposed to call, let's say, you can write a function that this particular set of code or lines will execute only when a certain request comes. Okay. But I cannot predict when that request comes, right? You do not know when the request will come. So how do we know when to call that function? So to solve that problem, what developers do, they build callback functions. What do you mean by callback functions? That JavaScript automatically will call that function when it requires it. Okay. So that is called a callback. Okay. So as soon as the listening starts, okay, listening is basically the server starts. I need to have this callback function. See, this is a proper function. Like if you remove this part and analyze it separately, this is the same syntax which I use to show that this is the function in JavaScript. Okay, so this is nothing but a function that as soon as the listening starts, I'll put a comma and I'll paste this function that please use this function. I think I deleted that function by mistake, but no problem. I'll do it. So as soon as the listening starts, you call this function and it will console log and let me know that the application is ready. Okay. Okay. So now how do I start the application? Again, I will do nodemon index.js, and this time you will get an output that uh, application is ready to serve request. See, application is ready to serve request. But where is the application serving? Okay. So to check that, we have the Chrome browser and I can do localhost 4000. Okay. If your nodemon is not working, you can do node space index.js and you will get the same output. Okay. It will just not refresh every time you make any changes, but you can do that by hitting Control C on the terminal or git bash and restarting the server. Okay. So that is how you're supposed to do it if your nodemon is not working. Localhost 4000, it is saying at least you're getting some output. So let's say if the server had been dead and I visit that again, you will get an error. Okay, that this site can't be reached. Localhost refused to connect. So this is no application is running here right now. But as soon as you do nodemon index.js and make it listen at port number 4000, you have an application which is ready. Okay. Yes, you got cannot get slash. So now let's fix this cannot get slash. What do you mean by cannot get slash? Basically, you have not told the Express API what should happen when I visit this slash. Slash basically means the root URL. Okay, localhost 4000 is the root URL. If I make something like localhost 4000 slash songs or localhost 4000 slash books, that is not the root URL. Okay, so you have to tell that every time I do a get request on the port look 4000, I need this request response or parameters and I'll do this. Okay, I'll just write some code and then I'll explain it. So I have saved this code and when I go back, it will tell me that it is restarting now. Now see, it said hi there. If you zoom in, okay. So what does this mean? Now to understand this, you need to understand HTTP request methods. Okay. So these are the different request methods which exist. Basically, you can perceive any API to be as a collection of objects. Okay. What do I mean by a collection of objects? Let's say every song can be perceived as an entity in the backend. Okay. So I can get a song, I can post a song, I can delete a song, I can update a song. All of that is an object. So if I want to get something, I make a get request. Okay. That does not change anything in the backend, that in the database. But if I make a post request, obviously the database will have to be updated, right? The new song which I'm sending somewhere, it has to be updated. right? So that is a get request. And a post request is you creating something in the backend, but we are not doing anything as such right now. I hope you all understood the request methods. Any doubt in request methods, please ask. I'll wait for 2 minutes. Any doubt so far? I guess there is no doubt so far. So I think you all understood. So I'll move on. Request and response. These are the two objects which Express gives you, which contains every single bit of information about the incoming request and the outgoing response that you have to send. Okay. So let's say I am getting some input from the user. Okay. So let's say in the URL, I am passing this num equals to 3. I'll put a question mark and then I do num equals to 3. Okay. The output won't change right now. Okay. But I'll show you how to perceive, or you can say how the request object has this information for me to use if I want it. Okay. So I'll, instead of sending hi there, I will send request dot query dot num. Okay. And when I refresh, I hope it, uh, yeah. So once I refresh now, every time I hit enter, it will update that number because now I have access to that variable, that num. Okay. I can even make this a string. See? So this is how basic routing works. This is called routing. Okay. That you are uh, taking a request and you are doing some processing on that, and then you are serving a response. Okay, that is called routing and controllers and all that. So this is one basic get request. We will be building, I think, 3 or 4 routes which will help you uh, understand how a REST API is built. Okay, so if everybody is clear with that so far, we can proceed. um, Another thing which we can teach you right now is status codes. Okay, status codes are very important. Basically, what do you mean by a status code is, it's better if I show you. Basically, there are many different reasons that something can go wrong or something can go right in a API. Okay, basic, either the database could fail, or the API logic could fail, or the request could be wrong. Let's say I expect a string as an input from the user, but they gave a number. Okay, an integer or a float. So in that scenario, it was not my fault, right? But if we just say error, okay, it does not convey any information to the user that what error has occurred, and I need that information enabled, in order to be able to analyze where I'm going wrong. Okay, so status codes help you in that regard. That I think there are 300 or 500 different status codes, each of which means something different. Okay, so the status code 500 and above represents server side errors. Okay, basically if there is some problem from the backend, maybe some bug or some database error, that is a 500 error. Okay, and let's say you are a user and your input was wrong. Maybe you gave me a wrong input, that is your fault, and that is a client side error, and that's classified as a 400 error. Okay, so the most common error that you would have seen of this class is a 404 error. A 404 error, which is generally seen when you visit a page which does not exist. So it's not that backend's fault that that page does not exist. You entered a wrong URL, right? So if anybody has noticed a 404 error, please let me know. I think I can give you a demo of that very easily. Like, let's say I have this. This is my GitHub page, right? github.com/sudo webhook. So I have a lot of, I think about 78 projects, repositories, but one of them is not like, this is not a valid project name which I have built. Okay, but so let's say if I hit enter, see I got this 404 error that this is not, probably not the web page you are looking for. Okay, so this is my fault that I did not know that this uh, URL, or you can say this project does not exist. I should have known better. So that's a 200 error, the 200 message. Sorry, 400 message. Uh, but let's say everything goes fine. That a request, I requested correctly, I got served correctly, everything is fine. So that is classified as a 200 status code. Okay. And 300, I think, is for redirects. Let's say you entered one website, but it redirected you to some other site. So that classifies as a 300 status code. So why I'm telling you all this is, whenever you are building a proper backend API for a client, you have to make sure that you are having a proper error handling and proper status codes and all that, because that will help them in order to have that API be maintainable in the long run. Okay, so that is all about status codes. So because everything is normal, I'll I have no problems here. So I'll change this to res.status 200 dot send. Okay, so this is called chaining. Basically, you have this res object, you chained the dot, using the dot you changed the status, and then again you did another dot, you did a send. Okay, and I'll add the return keyword here so that the processing stops after this line in JavaScript. Basically, this is similar to return in C++ or return in Python, that after this line, no execution shall take place in this function. Okay, so this is the last line of that function. Although here it is kind of redundant because there is only one line. Okay, so this is the get route which we have made. Okay, I hope all of you have understood that. Okay, so now we will go